3-year, $36.6 million extension over the weekend. Cleveland will likely focus on drawing up a deal next for Baker Mayfield. The former Heisman Trophy winner led the Browns to the playoffs, where they won their first playoff game since 1995 before getting knocked out by the Chiefs in the divisional round. LeVar, how high is the ceiling for Baker Mayfield and the Brownies this season?
It better be real high. After this season, you'll have 30 total free agents. After next season, you'll have 27, and they're big names. So this team that you're boasting, all of this talent in terms of personnel, you had better have success this year. That ceiling had better be sky high, because you know what else is going up with that ceiling? The window. The window could be closing on them. Look, Broussard, Mac, we all know winning cures all ills. If they have a really good year this year, we saw it happen in Tampa Bay, right? You had some main guys. This has never happened. So we're hitting uncharted territory where guys these days are more willing to look at the business of accomplishment rather than the business of just running for the bag, right? We saw guys come back. They returned all the starters from their championship run team. So when I look at this Browns team, they showed historical achievement and accomplishment this past year. Baker Mayfield took some definitive steps forward in how we can look at him as a franchise quarterback for his team. The Cleveland Browns, personnel-wise, took steps forward in showing that they can be a dominant team, not just a team, but you're in one of the toughest divisions and historically one of the most brutal divisions in all of the NFL, in that AFC North, and they were able to do what they needed to do and ultimately knock off Big Brother Pittsburgh in the playoffs. So to me, the ceiling is high, but depending on what they do this year will ultimately dictate, Chris, if you're talking about a ceiling that can continue to be a little bit higher than what it is this year. And you saw they signed Nick Chubb for not an egregious number. You know, you could look at the Nick Chubb deal and say, wow, Nick Chubb is paid outside of the top 5 highest paid running backs in the league, but yet you could consider him one of the top 5 running backs in the league. If you have guys that are willing to play ball like that and do deals that is going to leave enough room for them to be able to sign guys back, you'd have to assume that there's a buy-in, a collective belief that this Browns team can achieve, and they might be able to get these free agents re-signed and keep this team together. That will dictate how high their ceiling is moving forward.
What's the ceiling? Meaning, how high could they possibly go? The ceiling is the Super Bowl. That's right. I said the ceiling is the Super Bowl.
It's possible. Now, it's possible.
I'm not predicting that. My prediction is Kansas City. I like Kansas City and Buffalo better. Though, again, like I said about Dallas, those two teams to me are definitively better than the Browns, particularly Kansas City. Then you got Baltimore and Miami and the Browns and Tennessee. You know, they're kind of bunched in together. But if you're a Browns fan, you've got to be thinking, we got a chance to win or reach the Super Bowl. Here's the thing, guys. As much as I like Kansas City, as much as I think they're not only going to get to the Super Bowl, but win it, the fact of the matter is, in the history of the NFL, only 3 teams have ever made 3 straight Super Bowls. Not won 3 straight. No, none have won 3 straight, obviously, but made 3 straight. With the Steelers of the 70s, the Niners of the 80s, the Cowboys of the 90s, the Patriots since then, only 3 teams have ever made it to 3 straight Super Bowls. So Kansas City, it's just tough. You know this, LeVar. It's just tough to get the 3 straight. So with that being the case, the Browns do have an opening. Like Dallas, the key is going to be, did their defense improve? The offense, you said it, is great. I think they got the best 1-2 punch in the backfield with Chubb and Kareem Hunt. We know how good their receiving core is. OBJ, he don't have guaranteed money next year. All right? So to me, he's got to come in. He's got to play ball. He's got to have a good attitude. He's got to show that for all his individual talent, he can help you win. Because the fact is, in 7 years in the NFL, for as many of the highlights and all the commercials and the watches and all the buzz about OBJ, he's only contributed to a strong season win-loss-wise one time. One time. Last year, obviously, he didn't contribute after he got hurt early in the season. So he's got to come in. I think he'll have the right attitude, and that'll help. I think Baker's matured to the point where he doesn't feel like he's got to look and appease OBJ. He's just going to throw it to the open man. So offensively, they're fine. The key is the defensive side. Last year, guys, they were the only team in the league to have a winning record and give up more points than they scored. All right? So the defense has to improve. We know they got Jadeveon Clowney. They really went big on the defensive backfield. Greedy Williams is back from injury. John Johnson, they signed. They drafted Greg Newsome. I think they'll be improved on that side of the ball. I know it's hard to put faith in the Browns because they've been a mess for 3 decades. But Stefanski is the real deal. Their talent is the real deal. And I think these dudes, they proved it last year by beating Pittsburgh and then by playing Kansas City. I know the offensive line was injury ravaged, but they played them tough in the playoffs. So ceiling, Super Bowl. I think they'll make the playoffs and lose their second to Kansas City.
Like sometimes I like to pump the brakes, you know, in rush hour traffic. You pump the brakes. Chris, I need to mash up the brakes on the Super Bowl talk for the Browns. Like, stop. That is way, way, way overboard. You know you got to walk before you can run, Chris. As you said, this is a team that was outscored last year despite going 11-5. And defense is going to be everything for this team, okay? We know what the offensive side has. Odell's coming back. That's huge. The running backs are great. Baker, better. But, Chris, I just read a preview where the Browns could have 9 new defensive starters. 9. This is a team that was boat
They
raced.
need to.
I mean, they could not stop the Ravens to save their life last year.
They
okay?
need to.
And, by the way, the Ravens are the class of the division for sure. I do like this Browns team. I think they're about a 10-11 win team, but the schedule gets a lot tougher, okay? That being said, I'm kind of on board with LeVar here. This is the best Browns roster in about 30 years. Since LeVar was in high school and Bernie Kosar, yes, Bernie Kosar was under center in Cleveland. This team is loaded. They've got 2 #1 overall picks on the edge with Garrett and Clowney. But 9 new defensive starters is a lot to work in. This was a bottom 7 defensive unit in the NFL last year. Still, they propelled to the playoffs with a first-year coach, new system, new everything. But Super Bowl is very premature. You got the Ravens, you got the Bills, you got the Chiefs, as Chris said. Let's not think Super Bowl. Let's just say, okay, hey, let's get back to the playoffs. Let's win a game. Let's keep it moving. LeVar, let's not put Super Bowl expectations on a guy like Baker Mayfield, who just 2 years ago led the league in commercials as opposed to any other offensive stat. Like, Super Bowl's premature, Chris.
I don't think so. I think they can motorboat their way all the way to the Super Bowl. Nah. Some of y'all might have caught that. Some of y'all didn't. I think they can get. He loves boat races, so he loves the term. So I just figured I'd mess around with it on national television. Somebody laughed when I hit y'all with that. I do think that they can make it to the Super Bowl, actually, and here's the reason why. A lot of the statistics that you guys are throwing out there are stats that took place during the early to mid part of the year. If you recall last year, they found themselves later on in the season. And the reason why they found themselves is because they found their running attack. They got the best offensive line in all of football right now, in my opinion. I mean, it's a dope offensive line. Now, they have 2 running backs that can run the ball, and they can run the ball effectively. If you're going to beat a team like Kansas City, you know how you beat them? By running the game and pressuring the quarterback. We saw the blueprint play out in the Super Bowl. Not necessarily running the ball in the Super Bowl, but certainly the pressure that they were able to get on Patrick Mahomes. So you have the ability. That's why they added Jadeveon Clowney. He's not going to be an every down impact player. But if you can get Jadeveon Clowney to be a guy that can get you a pressure one time a series during the course of a game, which is very doable with Jadeveon Clowney. You now have one of the most premier defensive players in Myles Garrett on the other side that can get to him every other play, every other snap, and is going to command double and triple teams. So now you're looking at your defense being in a much better position because they found themselves an offense at the last part of this season last year. Baker Mayfield found a level of confidence in the last part of this season and in the playoffs. I saw his confidence level go to a whole entirely different place when they beat the Steelers in that first round of the playoffs. You're dealing with a dangerous team this year, and it's a dangerous team because they found an identity. Whether they stumbled upon it, whether it was necessity, whether it was planned, whatever Stefanski did, they found an identity, they wrote it out, and it worked very well. So when you throw out other teams like Baltimore, you throw out the